Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ben here, and today we're talking about one very important aspect of photography, and that is composition. When you look at a good image, the reason why you want to stare at it, the reason why you want to observe more, you want to double like it, that reason is because it's properly composed. Rest assured. You can have the technical knowledge, know much about your ISO, shutter speed, aperture, and all that. But if you don't have the practical knowledge, which is basically composition, trust me, without your photo, your video, if it's not properly composed, it's not pleasing to the eye. Your viewer will scroll through. Composition is a very, very broad topic, but I want to talk about some few tips and tricks that you can use to get better images and up your photography game. This video is not limited to those intending to learn photography. You could be a professional as well. Just refresh your brain. And before we proceed, please do well to like and subscribe, as this will help me get more reach to those intending to learn photography and also learn more about this topic. Thank you. So let's hop in. So you ask, what is composition? Composition is how well elements are arranged in a frame that makes it visually appealing to the viewer. There are several elements involved in making better composition, and we're going to hop on them. Firstly, I want to start with basic principles of photography. In a photograph, there is always usually one subject, and that subject basically could be a product, could be a person, could be a building, could be literally anything. The power is in the hands of the photographer, right? That's why there are different categories of photography. And when you see the work of a photographer, you can easily tell what this photographer is into. You see landscapes. A landscape photographer will make sure that his landscape stands out. A product photographer is going to make sure that his product photography stands out. He makes sure that you see the product. He makes sure that you like the product. He makes sure that he shows details of this product. Same thing with portrait and other categories of photography as well. Your subject should always stand out. Another principle of photography is in how well you structure your frame. You have your foreground, you have your middle ground, you have your background, and observing these different layers and combining them in a way that makes a lot of sense. It's important to combine these different layers together in a way that you can properly tell a story. Your foreground is as much as important as the middle ground and the background as well, because when you combine these three, you're able to tell a solid story, and you're able to tell a story in the way you want that story to be told. Everything contributes to how well your image is. Your foreground is as important as your middle ground, also as important as your background. So make sure when you're taking a photograph, you always observe these different layers and you get better images. Yeah, so we have composition guidelines or composition rules. And while you can say that rules are meant to be broken, these rules and guidelines have been proven to make sure that your photograph stands out and it's better composed. So the very first, your rule of thirds. Imagine your image divided into 9 equal parts with 2 horizontal lines and 2 vertical lines intersecting each other. This rule states that you place your important compositional subject along these intersecting lines on the vertical or horizontal side, and by so doing you're able to create a really pleasing image to view, just like this example. You also have symmetry. Symmetry in photography is creating an image with equal parts on both sides. Symmetry is about balance. It's about making sure that each side can mirror each other, and it's perfect for scenes where you have a narrow aisle. You have I think it's mostly perfect with architecture and all, but yeah, you can try with portrait photography as well. Trying symmetrical concept in your photography is really going to improve your work, so you should try it out. You see this a lot in a lot of cinematic movies, symmetry, where you balance out the subject or you place the subject in the middle and you see equal. If you look on the left, you look on the right, you see equal parts. And this is, in the human mind, this is very, very satisfying, to be honest, because I want to see balance. I want to see, it's not even OCD, it's just the human mind. It's just really, really satisfying when you see a very, very balanced image. Another composition rule, leading lines. This is when you use elements in your background or foreground to lead your viewer to your subject, right? So leading lines could be anywhere in your surroundings. It could be staircases, could be buildings with patterns on it, it could be road signs, you know. Making use of these leading lines, you're able to direct your viewer directly to your subject, and you're able to tell a story instantly. I consider leading lines a very, very powerful tool, and if you haven't really been noticing or trying it out, I think you should be more observant of your environment and your surrounding, and make sure you include this in your photography as well. And trust me, you're gonna get really impeccable images. So lastly, I just want to talk about some techniques that you can use in making your composition better. Firstly, you have to post-compose, and what I mean by post-compose, you already have the knowledge about composition, so later on you should always make sure that you adjust your image, make sure everything is straightened. If there is a straight wall, make sure it looks straight in the eye. It shouldn't be slanty, even though it wouldn't look so good. Also make sure that your horizon is straight as well, assuming you're taking a landscape photo and then there is the sea in the background or something. Just make sure you straighten everything out. If you're taking a picture of a subject and the foreground, background, there is something straight, make sure that while you're editing these photos, maybe your hand must have been slanted to the right or to the left. Make sure that you adjust this accordingly. Make sure it's straight, make sure it looks pleasing to the eye. Another technique you should use is making use of color. In regards to your subject, making your subject stand out is really, really important. You can follow the rule of thirds, you can follow the symmetrical techniques that I mentioned earlier, but another important thing is using contrasting colors. This way you can make your subject stand out from the background and from the foreground, and it gives your photo more life. Another technique I like to talk about is finding unique angles. As a photographer, I always say every photographer has a storyteller, and every photo is a story on its own, wherein the background, the foreground, the middle ground all come together to contribute and tell this story properly. The way you angle your photos, the way you adjust your frame or your structure, that way you're able to tell a better story. So with using these angles, you're able to tell a much better story. So find the best angle for you and make that story work. Yeah, remember that composition is the heart of photography. Always think before you shoot, always observe your surrounding, make sure your foreground, your background, everything is set, everything is good, everything tells your story just the way you want it to be. Alright, so thank you for joining me today, and if you've learned something, please do also like and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Until then, keep it 100.